So I'm not trying to change my YouTube channel from a figure-centric channel into a Nintendo Switch channel, but given the fact that I only get um, a couple figures a month, if I want content, I'll have to try some different things. So today I'm going to talk about the Return of the Obra Dinn, and I'll come right out and say I'm not a huge fan of indie titles, and no offense to the indie developers, but generally the problem for me is that they use a lot of primitive graphics, shallower gameplay, and the games tend to be very short. And so I'm not a huge fan. I like the idea, the concept of a small development studio or passion project or whatever, but generally when I get the games, I'm not super impressed. If it's a really cool idea but it lasts 2 to 3 hours, yeah, that's a bit of a problem. So I'll compare it to a game like Dusk. Dusk is an indie title, and I believe that this was produced by one developer. So that's cool, and it got really good reviews on Metacritic. Uh, it is a first-person shooter. Basically, the graphics are in the style of, say, the early 90s. Um, the problem with it is it doesn't really break any new ground. It's like you're playing a 1990s first-person shooter. Okay, so I never even finished the game because I think the very ending is just a cluster and with every enemy, and I just kind of said to hell with it. But it's a cool game. I don't think it deserves the ratings it's getting. I think that they were like high eights, low nines, or something like that. One of the highest rated first person shooters, but I can tell you a lot of other first person shooters that I think are much better. The Return of the Obra Dinn. This was produced by Lucas Pope. And so this is kind of a look at what the graphics look like. Something like PC graphics, again, late 80s, maybe early 90s. The difference is that Lucas Pope can do things that they couldn't do back then, particularly with things moving very smoothly. And this was I'm pretty sure it was a one-person development job. Now there are a lot of credits, but the credits are for voice acting and localization. But for development, Lucas Pope did it all by himself. And apparently the project became much bigger than he had planned on. And it got really good reviews. Here's another screenshot. So this is what the graphics look like. And let's see here. So a lot of awards, a lot of nominations, came out in 2018. So it's getting, the various, it's getting a lot of high eights, low nines, even a 9.5. Is my favorite of all of I got this from Limited Run, by the way. This is my favorite of all the indie games I've ever played, like by far. I love this game. The concept is that you're an insurance agent who so it's in 1803, and a ship has returned and everyone aboard is dead. And so there's probably, 25 crew members, and your job as an insurance assessor is to figure out, you have the ship's manifesto and the job on the ship, and it's your job to figure out look at each body, figure out who the person is and how they died. And it is so amazing. So it's I believe a 3 or 4 level ship, and at first you're kind of locked out. And so what you do is you kind of wander around and you look at a body, and you have this stopwatch that I guess is kind of a magic stopwatch. And so here is an example of, he's looking at the stopwatch, and what the stopwatch can do is it can return you to the moment of that person's death. And although it's a freeze frame, you can wander around it. So you have, even though it's a moment in time, you can wander around, investigate, look at other things. and you're trying to figure out what is this person's job and how did they die. And so what's so interesting about it is as you're going to from body to body, and it keeps opening up other sections, you start to get the idea of what happened on the ship. Why did everyone die? And at first it just seems like maybe a mutiny, or some sailors went crazy or something. But as you get deeper and deeper, and it kind of goes out of order chronologically, so it's opening up different slices of time, and you're figuring out things, and it becomes clear that something horrific happened. Not just some sailors getting crazy, but something truly, truly horrific. And so I would put this as a horror story. And there's not a lot of replayability to it, I would say. I plan on maybe waiting a couple years and then revisiting it. And you probably finish it in, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours. But I just loved this game in the time that I was playing it. So one of the things it does, so that you can't just randomly try things out, is there's a lot of options for deaths in there that nobody dies that way. So you have a lot of different choices, and also it will only tell you you're correct after you get 3. So it's groups of 3. And again, so that's to avoid somebody just going in and brute forcing it and figuring it out that way rather than legitimately figuring it out. And I really, really loved this game, and I highly recommend Return of the Obra Dinn. And after I played this, I was out there looking at what else had Lucas Pope done. He seems like a really interesting fellow. Whoops. Oh, what did I do? Sorry about that. Oh, forget it. I guess he married another developer, and she's Japanese, and so he lives out in Japan, and he's doing his thing. And I guess he made enough money, because he generally produces these games independently, that he can kind of do whatever he wants. And so right now he's supposedly producing a game for the Playdate that looks interesting. I don't have a Playdate. I don't think I will ever get a Playdate. So, but I'm not even sure. I mean, he's just one of these very interesting. So he did Papers, Please. I've never played that. I've never played any of his other games because. Oh, it does say Papers, Please is on the Nintendo Switch, but I assume that that's only digital. So he seems like he can do whatever he wants at this point. I guess he made enough money, and that's cool. That's really neat. It would be, I mean, I think it would have been cool if he'd had a team of developers under him. It's all black and white. It's kind of grainy, and there were times when, because of the graininess of the picture, I had a hell of a time figuring out. This only happened a couple times, but I remember one in particular where I had a hell of a time figuring out. Even though I saw the person dying right in front of my face, I could not figure out what the heck happened. And I think in that case, it was like one of the last ones I did start having to just try different things. But you probably have to get a digital copy unless you want to pay some higher amount of money. But I definitely recommend Return of the Obra Dinn. This is a fantastic game. So that's my favorite indie title that I've played, Return of the Obra Dinn by Lucas Pope.